One of our thought leaders in value creation is Professor Mark Packard of Florida Atlantic University. He wrote a book called Entrepreneurial Valuation, which was subtitled Getting Inside the Mind of the Consumer. He identified as one of his tools using one's own self as a lead consumer to understand your own preferences, your own feelings. You know yourself better than anybody else, so you can identify a market opportunity. Today, we'll see that principle in action. We're talking to David Kong. David has degrees in math and commerce, and he went into the financial services industry, specifically in hedge funds. Didn't see a way up and out from there, but he was able to identify from his own personal preferences a big market opportunity. He loved fine wine.
This is the Value Creators Podcast. Value creation is the sole purpose of any business and every business, and for all of us as entrepreneurs. Listen to great value creators as they share their successes, trials, and lessons learned. Join us as we explore how to think as value creators, how to act as value creators, and how to view business through the lens of value creation.
From that understanding of his own preferences, he created not one, but two companies. Somm.AI, which is a database and analytics company that helps wineries to understand and navigate the ins and outs of wine lists at the top restaurants. And second, Glasvin, which is a manufacturing company, one that makes glassware, distributes glassware through a direct-to-consumer business channel, and is extremely fast-growing and very successful. So we're going to talk to David today and have him tell us how he took his own preferences and insights about himself as a consumer to launch those two businesses. David, welcome to the Value Creators Podcast.
Glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. So let me see if I got this right. One day you decided to leave the financial services industry in a prestigious position in a hedge fund, no less, and decided to go disrupt one of the most staid and traditional industries that we have to become a cutting-edge innovator in that context. So we're interested in understanding the entrepreneurial mindset here. Tell us a little bit about the origin story of your two companies that we're going to talk about.
Well, I've always really loved entrepreneurship. In high school, I sold calculators. In university, we did exam prep tutorial sessions where we had like 100 people in a room and we charged each of them like $40 to help them cram for, their exam. Even that business, like we had like a revenue over like $100,000 a year. I was working like 4 months of the year or 3 months of the year, like when the exams occur. So I've always really loved entrepreneurship. I went to a business school because I liked entrepreneurship, and I really liked doing accounting actually when I was younger, and so I've always kind of enjoyed this aspect of it. Obviously, when you leave your job, leave school, it's really hard to go and start your own business right out of school. You don't have any savings, you don't have any connections, you don't really know how the world works. So I just went the pretty traditional path of going into finance, trying to like get some savings. And then an opportunity presented itself in 2018, early 2019, where the company I was working for, the hedge fund I was working for, wasn't doing too well. It was obvious that I probably needed to leave. And so my options were, do I go to another hedge fund where I had to kind of start from scratch? I was already working at the hedge fund for 3 years. So kind of you need some years to like kind of get back for people to trust you at a hedge fund. They start listening to what your opinions are. That was one option. The other option was to start the software business. So at the time I had an idea for what today is Somm.AI, which is basically like an aggregator of wine lists to make wine lists searchable. And so I had this idea, I was really excited about it. And then, end of the year, I got my bonus. And then, and I decided that this was the right path. This is what I was more interested in. I had some savings. I had like the idea, it was almost like the path of least resistance to starting a business. Yeah.
Good, 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 good. Did the idea of Somm.AI come from experience, or you?
Absolutely. So when I started Somm.AI, it's nothing like what it looks like today. Like we did a big pivot. What the reason I made Somm.AI was actually like for my own personal use. And the idea was if I would personally use it, then someone else would also personally use it. So basically it was like a way to find where to drink really rare wines. So we would just scrape all the menus and then we would search, okay, like this is, you're going to London and this is like the restaurant that has this really rare wine. So I personally love doing that. I do that. I still do that all the time. And I wanted to create some software for people to do that with. I've been drinking wine since like 10 years ago, since like leaving college. That's the industry that I know the most about, other than what I was investing in, which was like I was investing in chemicals, which is like not a super interesting industry and definitely not like somewhere I can be innovative with. So, I mean, people always say like start a business where you have the domain expertise, and it just happened that wine is the one that I had the most domain expertise.
Yeah, in fact, we love that as an origin story, that you're the consumer, so you understand the need and the experience and the benefits really precisely because you're a consumer. But how did it become a business? How did scraping wine lists for your personal interest become a business?
So my view in 2019 was that because I didn't know how to code, and obviously if I'm going to start a software business, I probably have to learn how to code. So I kind of took it as like, okay, even if this doesn't work out, at least after a year, I will have known how to code. So a year passes and the product is live, and we put it up, and this is like around early February of 2020, or even maybe early March. And just like suddenly, like the users just like hockey stick. And people are coming onto the platform and they're like searching wines, and they're searching all the wines that I expect them to search, like the super, super rare stuff. And people are reporting like, oh, like I was just able to drink a bottle of like Lijo Belair at like $600 at this restaurant because of my platform. So I was like, okay, well, people are actually using it. They're getting value out of it. Okay, so now I need to think about how to monetize it, because obviously that's the next step, and you don't really have a business if you can't monetize it. So just as I was thinking about that, COVID happened, because it's March 2020, and then suddenly no one's going to restaurants anymore. So that kind of threw the whole business plan up in the air. And then so we pivoted a few times, and we kind of landed in a spot where we realized that suppliers, like the brands, wineries basically, are like super interested in this data, and like for a totally different use case than what I was just explaining to you. But the data is the data. It's just about, how to present that data to be the most useful for the customer. So yeah, so then we just completely pivoted to B2B. And I'm sure like you've heard this on the podcast and stuff with people, like B2B is just so much easier than B2C, especially in SaaS. There's lots of companies that they only invest in B2B SaaS, because like B2C SaaS is like, it has to work perfectly, it has to look perfect. There's really high customer acquisition costs. People are very, very cheap. They cancel a lot. There's a lot of churn, all these issues with B2C. Whereas B2B, it's like, it's honestly like B2B SaaS is maybe like the world's best business model. So we just went that direction, and we've been on this really strong trajectory in our very niche end market, which is like on-premise wine data.
You still need a value proposition for those B2B users, David. So what's the benefit they're getting? Are they trying to get on the wine list? Are they checking competition? What are they using the data for?
Yeah, I mean, those are both exactly what they use it for. So number one, it's used for a benchmarking exercise to see how well you're doing, how fast you're growing versus your competitors. And then once you have that data, you can start to figure out like where are you a little bit weaker, and target the restaurants that carry your competitors' products, but not your product.
And so do you provide any analytics for them to help them understand, trends and benchmarks?
We sell them a portal that they have access to. So we're not selling them like raw data. We're selling them, it's kind of like it's a little bit like a Bloomberg for wine.
So they can query it and get analytics that way. Do you do analytics for them? Hey, here are the trends. Here's what you've got to look out for. Here's, what's happening at the $600 price point.
We have a like very high touch customer support kind of function where if they need something, then we'll help them. Because obviously, like, these people aren't like on the platform every day, and so especially the first couple of times, they're not going to know how to use the platform. I mean, it's pretty easy to use, but there's obviously some intricacies. So they'll say, hey, like what, like the question you just asked, and then we'll like record a video of how to get that data, and then we'll send them the video.
And on the website, David, you say this is the largest updated or updating database of its kind. That's a big claim for a startup. And I wondered why there's no competition in this arena. Why isn't Nielsen or somebody else doing this kind of thing?
Well, Nielsen is in a way, our biggest competitor, but they're very strong on the retail side, and they're not very strong on the on-premise side. So a lot of our customers use Nielsen and then also use us. Why is this? There not very much competition here? Well, first of all, I think it's pretty hard technology to figure out. And especially like the wine side, like wine is overall like a flat to declining market. And it's like a very long tail kind of industry where there's like a lot of kind of like smaller wineries. And because of that, it's like the ability to pay by any individual winery is not super high. So our prices reflect that. It's not an inexpensive platform, but it's not like, for example, like someone that does something similar to us charges something like $85,000, right? And I think they have, basically that's like the rate regardless of the size of your winery. We would come in much lower than that, especially for certain wineries. Like it's more like ability to pay is how we price our product. So if for many different reasons, it's not like the biggest TAM. It's so I don't think it drives like that. Like there aren't that many entrepreneurs trying to like create new things in this space that we're in. I mean, now that we've established this market, there might be more people that come in. There's people that do this on the food side, on the spirit side, and stuff like that. And then some of them might choose to try to come in and compete with us on the wine side. But again, I don't think it's like that lucrative that a ton of people are coming in.
And in that distribution, do you still tend to attract the high price point luxury wines? I mean, there's a lot of profit in small wineries that can get $200 or $300 a bottle for their prestigious wines.
Yeah, I mean, we do the best with the higher end the wine, the more interested they are in our platform. The higher end the wine, the more likely they're selling in restaurants, so higher percentage of their sales are on premise. The higher end the wine, like the less useful our competitors' data becomes. Like if you're selling beer on tap, like your Anheuser-Busch or whatever, like I mean, like we want to work with them too. I think our data will be useful to them as well. But you have some other interesting data sources that you can look at. But if you're selling like a small amount of $300 bottles of wine, then you're not going to show up on anyone else's radar. But you will show up on ours.
And your database can be global potentially. Is it multinational now? Is it global?
We can add any country on demand. So it just depends on what customers are looking for. But yeah, we already have countries outside of the US. US is definitely our home base, and that's the one where we lead with. But if a client needs something else, then we can work with them to get that.
So presumably it needs wine lists that are already uploaded to the internet. The restaurants have done that, which may not be as frequently found across the world, right? It may vary by economy and country.
Oh yes. Certain states and certain cities will have lower penetration rates, lower coverage rates, for sure.
Well, fascinating. And so that's your first entrepreneurship story. And you have another company, which we're going to talk about now, called Glasvin, which is even more traditional. It's about glassware, which is hard to innovate in, and it's not about coding. So tell us about the origin story of Glasvin.
Yeah, so I started the Somm.AI at the early part of 2019. And then a few months went by, and I'm like, well, this is great. I'm learning how to code, and this is pretty fun, and I'm interested in doing more here. But how long is it going to take for me to like actually make some money? Trying to sell data. So I was running into that problem, and I said, okay, well, what can I do that's like a little bit faster and maybe a little bit easier than to like try to start a software business? So I historically have always loved hand blown wine glasses. I think I was eating at, it's not Le Bernardin, but they have like a wine bar. Oh, it's called Aldo Somm bar, I think. And I just like felt these glasses in this New York City, and they're my biggest competitors called Zalto. Really, really nice Austrian made like glasses. Now they're made in somewhere else, but when I was using them, they were made in Austria, and I really love them. And they like it's like a, I don't know what the best example is. Like it's like once you switch to like a bigger phone, you're not going to switch back to a smaller phone. I think something like that. But basically, once you use these glasses, you are not okay at that point in your life to like use anything else. So I knew how important of a product this was. They had one main issue. Well, two main issues. One is that it was very expensive. So at the time, it was like $65 or something per glass, right? And then these things break frequently because they're very light and they're very thin. So, so you were just, there was this constant wheel of like spending $65 to replace these glasses. So and this is all before I quit my job. Like this is me like enjoying these glasses and replacing these glasses. And I found out that if you just bought them in Europe, they were like half the price. And then even with shipping, maybe it got up to like $40, right? But you had to buy like a bunch at a time. You couldn't just buy, two, because then the shipping would kill you. So what I would do is like I would just like buy 24 glasses from Europe at like $40 a glass, and then I would just like sell it to my friends for like $40 a glass. And so I remembered myself doing that. I'm like, well, I guess if I'm already selling a glass for $40 a glass to my friends, and my friends aren't like super wine geeky nerd people, so like, I knew it wasn't just like a couple people that needed to do this. Like a lot of people actually had this problem. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I import Zalto or a competitor brand? Because there's lots of competitors to Zalto. I just need to like find one, import it, and if I can get it shipped here at retail $40, then I can definitely import it at like and then make a margin and sell it at $40, and then just undercut the leader, which is Zalto, by like 30-40%. Okay, so that was my idea at like 8 a.m. in the morning. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, wait, that's not the way to do this. The way to do this is to actually just start my own brand. And I actually at that point had a few other friends that had started their own brands, and they were actually doing pretty well. So I knew it wasn't like, e-commerce. If you want to start a business that has the highest chance of success, that isn't like a lawn mowing business or like, consulting business, whatever, it's probably like a business that has like really good terminal value. Like e-commerce actually is a really good one. It's not the hardest kind of business. It's still hard. Any business start is hard, but it's actually not the hardest one. So yeah, that's what I did. I started, and then I started looking for manufacturers, and then basically a year later in 2020 we started selling our first model of Glasvin.
So let's dig into that simple sentence. You started looking for suppliers. In fact, you developed a beautiful product that has a lot of exclusive features to it. It's very thin. It's handcrafted. It's got all of these wonderful attributes. How do you build a supply chain to do that? How do you find the craftsmanship and the manufacturing and the quality control and the shipping? How do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, these are all really great questions, and it's not like you figure this out on day one, right? Like day one is you look for manufacturers. I'm literally doing this right now because this is the first time I'm saying this. This is like, because this just happened, but we're doing ceramics it might not happen, but this is literally day one of ceramics. And basically you're just like emailing a bunch of people and being like, hey, like, can you do this? I mean, with these glasses, it's very simple, right? I'm like, can you make a glass this big under 100 grams? Right? And like 99% of them are like, no, or why would you do that? But a couple people say, yes, we can do that. And then I'm like, I want some samples. And then so they send me samples. And then I'm like, okay, so these are just as good as Zaltos. So yeah, let's do it. So then you place the order. And then I went to check out the factory after they finished production and then figured out there were some issues. So we fixed those issues. And then we shipped our first order was like 2 pallets of glasses, tiny. It was like 1,000 glasses, or that might be more than 2 pallets. That might be like 3 pallets. I don't know, whatever. Shipped it over. I don't even remember how. I think we shipped it over using just like, it wasn't UPS, but it wasn't like it's obviously less than container load, but it wasn't even like on pallets. I don't know. It just like shipped over in a big container that was consolidated, and then the last leg was UPS. It's like we didn't know how to do any of this stuff. I had to find a warehouse within like 30 days, and it's actually pretty hard to find a warehouse, surprisingly, and even less like a really good and reliable one. I mean, whatever. Little by little, we had all that ready. The packaging looked horrible at the start. I have photos of it. I can send to you later. You can see how much it's improved since then. But I mean, it didn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because like the thing that really matters, obviously, and most people don't really understand this. I don't think when they start DTC businesses, is that like if you want to go the route of like pumping a lot of money and building a brand, and that's one way. But if you want to go the way of like sustainable, like organic, I own 100% of Glasvin and I don't have any investors, right? Like if you want to go this route, then you have to create something where you're actually creating value for the customer. I mean, this seems so obvious, but like, if you make another bedsheet brand and price it about the same as the existing bedsheets, and you're not adding value, like you're just adding noise to the mix. So like it didn't matter that our packaging was bad, and it didn't matter that like, our website looked horrible and our photos looked horrible. Like I did my own photography for the glasses. It looked like so bad. I can send you all this stuff, but it doesn't matter because we were selling a product that was as good as something that was at the time $65 for $30. So we were half the price and we were just as good. And all the people that were buying this for $60 understood that, and they started buying me for $30.
Okay. So a lot of questions, David, and congratulations on achieving all of that. We like to dig into exactly what you talked about, value creation. So yes, you've got a price point, you've got a lower price point, but we don't think of value that way. We think of it as the feeling that you get when you're using your glassware. We think of it as an emotional value. I'm really interested to know what that is in glassware. Is it a feeling of luxury for me that I've got this wonderful stemware, or is it conspicuous consumption? I invite you around to see what wonderful glassware I've got. Is the experience of drinking better? What have you found out about that?
For us, it's most about the experience you get when you drink it. It's not about like showing off. Like we're not a luxury brand, right? Like our glasses cost like the high end ones like cost like $40 a glass, and if you get a coupon, it's probably like $36 a glass. It's like not a luxury product. Most people, if they wanted to, can afford these glasses. I don't think everyone should buy these glasses, but if you wanted them, you could have them. So it's not like when you have these glasses, it's like a luxury good. If you wanted something to show off about, you're actually probably buying our competitors. Those are like the incumbents, and people recognize those brands more. The people who buy our glasses are people who really love wine, probably spend a decent amount of money on wine, and it makes the wine taste like 25% better. At least that's how I feel like. It's hard to quantify. But when you drink a wine out of a nicer glass, it makes the whole entire experience better. It's lighter, so when you're like lifting it up, it doesn't it's not as much weight to lift. When you're drinking it, it's like there isn't as much glass in your mouth because it's thinner. So it's just you taste. It's like you get more wine and less glass, if that makes sense. I mean, I'd like to say I invented this thing, but I didn't. Like this came like 10 years before me. People didn't use glass like this in the past. This didn't really exist. I would say about 10 years ago. Like Zalto, I think was like founded in 2008, and it probably started like making waves here around about 10 years ago. So like this is a fairly new kind of phenomenon, and I didn't invent it. It's just people like, and this is again very niche of small group of people who know what even a hand blown glass is. But the people who like wine, that's all they drink out of. They don't want to drink out of anything else.
It's really fascinating how these, we call them consumer needs, but they're not really needs, but desired experience evolves. So maybe somebody figured out how to make this thin stemware and that became a value, or maybe somebody felt the need for a better drinking experience and thin stemware was the result. But it's really, really fascinating to see how it evolves. And you've discovered it. You've put your finger on it somehow, right? You didn't know it exactly, but you found it.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to your point about starting a business where you have domain expertise, and if you're the consumer, I mean, the main thing that you get if you're the consumer of your product is then you don't have to do market research, because market research when you're like small is like extremely, extremely hard to do. Like talking with customers is extremely hard to do. Like if you just go around and talk to like sommeliers and be like, hey, like, what do you think of this business idea or whatever? And there's like ways to ask, and like there's a really good a book called The Mom Test, which tells you how to ask these questions. But it's all like extremely inconclusive. And I mean, part of your job as an entrepreneur is to like just pick a way and just like go at it. If it doesn't work, go a different way. But because I know the product, and this is partly why Glasvin was so much easier to set up than Somm.AI, is because Glasvin, like I just knew this was gonna be a good idea because I knew I personally would be buying it. Whereas Somm.AI, like we went B2B, I'm not the consumer there. I kind of had to like figure it out over a few years, like what people cared about, what they're willing to pay for it, all that stuff.
You mentioned packaging. Let's talk about that a little bit. You were kind enough to ship me a couple of your glasses, and what the Instagrammers call the unpackaging experience was really nice. Came in a beautiful box, well sealed. You open it. There's the protective packaging, the black foam that protects the glass. They're seated nicely. They're beautiful leaflets. You said the original packaging was a little poorer than that. So how did packaging evolve? Was that your design, or did you use a design firm?
Yeah, so I personally just go and went on Adobe Illustrator and just made it myself. The first version, I made it myself. Didn't really think too much. Actually, I have it right here. I'm going to put it on the screen. This, if anyone's on the YouTube video, but this is what the original packaging looked like. And so I was designing this, and then at some point, I'm like, okay, we got like, but this is like a few years in, and we already had like almost 1 million of sales, and I was like, okay, we got to probably fix this. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that people don't understand. I don't think is like you don't have to spend a ton of money and hire people and like hire a design agency. I mean, like I just have to say, like if you're starting a DTC company, like just that's not the right place to spend your money on day one. Like obviously when you get a little bit bigger and if you want to rebrand, you can always rebrand. It's tons of companies rebrand. If you look at the first logo for Google versus the current logo, or the first logo for Apple versus today, like they all look different. So you can rebrand, it's not a big issue. But spending like even like $10,000 on branding is like one of the dumbest things I can think of when you're starting a DTC company. And yeah, I just like literally went on Illustrator and just like it's pretty simple stuff. It takes you like a couple of hours and you're done.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the direct to consumer model. You said research is not useful, at least in a formal sense, but direct to consumer is kind of research in itself, right? You figure out who's going to buy your product and how loyal they're going to be and what price points are right. You do it through experimentation. So do you do all of your sales from your own website? Do you use any platforms like Amazon? Tell us about the marketing of direct to consumer?
So right now we're only on our own website, which is powered by Shopify. We're not on Amazon yet. There's a few reasons for that, but the main one is I don't seem like I can get an approved Amazon account. Like they always think I'm like a fraud or something. So I can't get a working Amazon account. But even if we did, I don't think we'd offer anywhere close to our full catalog on Amazon. I don't think the average person on Amazon is the right customer for most of our products. And so, that's not, it just like, I want to put my product where my customers are. And that's not Amazon. We do go through a couple of third party retailers. A big one's Food 52. And we can talk about that if you'd like. And then our other big market is just like wholesale. So we sell a ton of glasses to restaurants.
Yeah, and I noticed on your website or your materials that you mentioned the restaurants that you are with. So that in a sense is a B2B business, right? You're selling to business customers.
It is a B2B business, but like, a lot of these restaurants are pretty small. And so it's like, it's like, it is B2B, but it feels a little bit like you're just dealing with like you know, a customer that, they might buy like $1,000 of glasses a year, and that's fine. But yeah, we love working with restaurants. Restaurants is a great, first of all, like the amount of times a glass is used in a restaurant is probably like 20 times higher than the amount the glass is used in a home. Right. So that results in, more frequent replacement of the glasses. So they're a great customer on that note. And the second, and most importantly, it's the best marketing channel. Like my favorite brand is Aesop soap. And the way that they came into the forefront, I believe, and I mean, this is how I found out about the brand, is they just get their stuff into nice hotels and nice restaurants. And and then you use it in the washroom of a nice restaurant. And you're like, well, this is a much better experience than like the $2 soap that you get from the supermarket. And then you go on the website of Aesop, and you're like, oh, it's like $40 a thing, and I'll just buy that. That's not going to kill me. So that marketing it's so great, and it doesn't cost you anything. Actually, you make money selling into restaurants. So it's like positive, it's like negative ROAS marketing. And so that's basically our strategy. That's one of our strategies is just, that's our main strategy in some ways, is just get them into restaurants, get into the best restaurants, figure out how to do a deal at all the best restaurants.
Is that door-to-door selling, David, or is that mailing, or?
It's not door to door, as in there's no one walking in. This is a funny point though, because restaurants are really used to people who sell wine, right? And wine is like very traditional in that like people are literally like you said, walking door to door. Like like these distributors hire salespeople right out of college, pay them, basically minimum wage, and then like plus a commission. And their jobs is literally like to take a bag of wine to a restaurant and like, talk to the sommelier about the wines. And so I think like there is that kind of a thing that they expect. And some of the glassware companies also follow that trend. So I think it is surprising sometimes when I'm like, no, like I'm not gonna go to your restaurant. I'm just gonna send you the glass. I'll get there in a few days, and then I'll email you after you get it. Because that's way more efficient. And we don't really have any salespeople, so it's just me selling to all these restaurants. And so I'm selling everywhere. I'm selling globally, really, but mostly in the U.S. But I'm selling in every state. That's how you do it. And just to be clear, I do want to make something clear though. The amount of outbound sales is very low compared to inbound sales. Like the majority of our clients find out about us through the same process. They go to a restaurant that they like, or they have a chef or something that they're friends with, because people in the restaurant industry obviously talk to other people in the restaurant industry, and they're like, oh, like what's the glass you're looking for? So a couple of years ago, a couple of our big competitors went out of stock, right? And that's when people started talking. They're like, oh no, like I'm out of stock. Like who should I go to? And then and then they'll mention us. And so most of our sales to restaurants are just like the consumer side. Most of it is an inbound sales motion.
You just came back from was it a trade show or a conference in LA? Is that another way to get in touch with restaurants?
Okay, so this is a really good story. So we sponsor a event called La Pole. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I suspect most people on this podcast have not heard about it, but it is the highest end wine event in the US, maybe in the world, but let's just say the US for now. It's like, and it's all Burgundy, so that's partly why it's the highest end, because this stuff is expensive. And so they fly all these producers from Burgundy in, house them in like the Fairmont, and then it's just like a week of like parties, and like I don't know how else to even describe it other than a party. I don't think I don't know if any business is being done. It's really just like people are just enjoying themselves. The producers are not there to do business, really. Like these producers, my sense, this is just my sense, this might be incorrect, but my sense is that the producers attend because it's a party, as opposed to like trying to sell wine. They Burgundy just sells out every year, so they don't need to sell any more wine. But we sponsor that event, which means we give them, like this time in LA, we gave them 3,000 glasses. Like we rented them 3,000 glasses free of charge. And then in New York, we have like 4,000 glasses. So we have we basically set up this operation specifically to sponsor these guys. And these guys are like the number one wine event in the US. So that's the brand we want to be associated with. And then from that, we developed a rental program, because now we have all these glasses sitting there. And now in LA and in New York, people can call us up and we'll rent glasses of them.
So a business evolved out of going to the La Palais.
Yeah. So what happened there was a winery at Ornellaia called me. And again, this is all inbound. I don't know how he found out about me, but they said, hey, like we used to use Zaltos in a rental manner, and they stopped. I mean, they're obviously like, I think they're like sold out, and they don't just don't have stock, so they don't have glasses for rental purposes anymore. They said they're doing events and they want us to rent our glasses. And I'm like, I don't know how many here people know what Ornellaia is, but yeah, Ornellaia,
I'm totally a big fan. You're at the high end there.
Yeah, exactly. That's like another brand that we want to be affiliated with. So we do all their events as well. And then I'm like, okay, well, if Zalto's out of the market, then I'm just going to email every single other event that uses Zalto. And La Palais, I knew because I've attended these events before, used Zalto. So I called them up and I said, I literally just went on La Palais's website, and there's an email on the website, and I just typed it in and I said, hey, do you want free glasses? And they're like, yes. And so that's how that happened.
Wow. Well, David, you're going to have to wrap it up for time here, but thank you. You've given us an absolute education about how to think about being entrepreneurial, starting a business, managing it, doing it yourself, not wasting money, finding the clients, getting just a unique positioning and creating a brand without spending a lot of money on advertising it and so on. And there's growth still to be had, right? It sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be doing my job if we weren't growing.
Yeah. Brilliant story. So thank you.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Value Creators Podcast. Thanks for listening. You can visit thevaluecreators.com for links and resources related to this episode, and check out hunterhastings.com for more content on entrepreneurial business management based on value creation principles.